Boom bap, boom bap, boom bap, boo boo bap, boom bap, boom bap, boom bap, boo boo bap. Morning. Good morning. Morning, Adam. Good morning, Tasteless. How are we doing today? Cause I'm up and around and awake. Alrighty. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. All right. Now that we appear to have our shit together, um, yeah, I do not have any personal news. So we might as well get started because we got a lot of regular news to get to. Mistral AI releases new model to rival GPT-4 and its own chat assistant. Paris-based AI startup Mistral AI is gradually building an alternative to OpenAI and Anthropic, as its latest announcement shows. The company is launching a new flagship large language model called Mistral Large. One moment. One moment. One is the loneliest moment that you ever do. Two can be as sad as one. All right. When it comes to reasoning capabilities, it is designed to rival other top tier models such as GPT 4 and Claude 2. In addition to Mistral Large, the startup is also launching its own alternative to ChatGPT with a new service called LeChat or LeChat. And this chat assistant is currently available in beta. Oh, do 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 do. Mistral AI's business model looks more and more like OpenAI's business model as the company offers Mistral Large through a paid API with usage based pricing. Currently costs $8 per million input tokens and $24 per million of output tokens to query Mistral Large. An artificial language jargon. Oh yeah, the talking about tokens. By default, Mistral AI supports context windows of 32,000 tokens, generally more than 20,000 words in English, and it supports English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. Mistral Large is currently 20% cheaper than GPT-4 Turbo. Things are changing at a rapid pace, and AI companies update their pricing regularly. Yes, I have heard good things about Mistral as well. And just taking a look at Mistral's self-reported benchmarks, it's 5 points off of GPT-4 in the MMLU, 6 points off in the Hella Swag, less than a point off in the I think that's the Winegard. It's 94% in the ARC-C, which GPT-4 hasn't taken, or the ARC-C 5, and then in the ARC-C 25, it's off by about 2 points. So it looks close, but is it close enough, quality enough to take? Oh, well, I was going to get to this in another thing. To take market share away from GPT. Well, Microsoft and Mistral AI announced new partnership to accelerate AI innovation and introduce Mistral Large first on Azure. AI industry is undergoing a significant transformation with growing interest in more efficient and cost-effective models, emblematic of a broader trend in technological advancement. Today we are announcing a multi-year partnership between Microsoft and Mistral, a recognized leader in generative artificial intelligence. So, Microsoft is apparently hedging its bets. Obviously, Mistral is a competitor of OpenAI, and Microsoft has the best of both worlds in this case. Microsoft will support Mistral with Azure supercomputing infrastructure. Microsoft and Mistral will make Mistral's premium models available to customers through the Models as a Service. And Microsoft and Mistral will explore collaboration around training purpose-specific models for select customers. Previously, Mistral had been touted as like a fine example of open source. And all I could think of is the meme where Kenobi is telling Anakin that he was supposed to unite them, not become them, so on and so forth. You know the one. I guess we'll find out, baby. Chip news. Buyers of NVIDIA's highest end H100 AI GPU are reportedly reselling them as supply issues ease. NVIDIA's H100 processors are easier to get and rent. And we looked at something last week, an article last week, about how there was a Craigslist for GPUs, um, and there were about 13 offers on it, and Kawarda can't find a name. But yes, like it makes sense. It makes sense on a lot of levels for everyone involved. For the people developing AI and AI applications, um, not having to purchase the infrastructure and just access what they need allows them to do it at a lower price point, lower cost, and also they won't get saddled if new technology comes out that is better for purpose, right? You don't want to, you know, necessarily purchase a whole big database of GPUs and then you get outpaced by your competitors. The on the other hand, for the people that create the chips, they can in the same way that Microsoft is doing with Mistral, they can offer that, right? Like as a business model. You need something, we got it. You can come here and we have the technical expertise and we shoulder the burden of housing and maintaining the technology and combine that with someone like Nvidia. If Nvidia itself is going to do this, then they are going to also be able to upgrade that technology um, more easy in a more streamlined way. You know what I mean? Evidence mounts that lead times for NVIDIA's H100 GPUs, commonly used in artificial intelligence and high performance computing, applications have shrunk significantly from 8 to 11 months to just 3 to 4 months. So, slightly less than half the time. As a result, some companies who had bought ample amounts of H100 80 gigabyte processors are now trying to offload them. It is now much easier to rent from big companies like Amazon Web Service, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. Meanwhile, companies developing their own large language models still face supply challenges. The information reports that some companies are reselling their H100 GPUs or reducing orders due to their decreased scarcity and the high cost of maintaining unused inventory. This marks a significant shift from the previous year when obtaining NVIDIA's Hopper GPUs was a major challenge. Despite improved chip availability and significantly decreased lead times, the demand for AI chips continues to outstrip supply, particularly for those training their own LLMs such as OpenAI. The easing of the AI processor shortage is partly due. Um, I, as far as I can tell, no. Like, I mean, could you probably? Is it is the cost benefit analysis there? No. I mean, for one of these H100s, you're going to pay about 30K, 40K. You're much better off paying $1,000 for one of their, what are they, the 4070s? So it's less of a can you and more of a would you want to. Um, The easing of the AI processor shortage is partly due to cloud service providers like AWS making it easier to rent NVIDIA's H100 GPUs. For example, AWS has introduced a new service allowing customers to schedule GPU rentals for shorter periods, addressing previous issues with availability and location of chips. This has led to a reduction in demand and wait time for AI chips, the report claims. Despite overall improvement in availability, companies developing their own LLMs continue to struggle with supply constraints, to a large degree because they need tens or hundreds of thousands of GPUs. Accessing large GPU clusters necessary for training LLMs remains a challenge, with some companies facing delays of several months to receive processors or capacity they need. As a result, prices of H100s and other processors have not fallen, and the company continues to enjoy high profit margins. I mean, yes, and also, where is it? I thought I put it there. I must not have. Here we go. Yes. Yes, they are. Micron's new ultra-fast memory to power NVIDIA's next-gen AI GPUs, 24GB HBM3E chips put into production for H200 AI GPUs. Micron announced today that it is starting volume production of its memory, the company's latest memory for data center and AI class GPUs. In particular, Micron says its memory is being used for NVIDIA's upcoming H200, which is slated to launch in the second quarter of the year with 6 HBM3E memory chips. Additionally, Micron said it would detail its upcoming 36 gigabyte chips in March at NVIDIA's GTC conference. Compared to the regular ones, the the new ones, bandwidth from 1 terabyte per second up to 1.2 terabytes per second. A modest but noticeable jump in performance. They also increase max capacity per chip to 36 gigabytes, though Micron's chips for NVIDIA's H200 will be just 24 gigabytes per chip, on par with the current maximum. These chips also support 8 high stacks rather than the maximum 12 that it can theoretically offer. Micron claims its particular memory has 30% lower power consumption than its competitors, Samsung and SK Hynix, which also have their own implementations. Micron didn't say whether it would be the only company providing the memory for the H200, and it probably won't be. There's so much demand for AI GPUs that the company reportedly pre-purchased $1.3 billion worth of memory. Morning, PETA. Welcome to the lurk. Always lurking, always working. All right, shifting to our discussion of the workplace, as we like to touch on, and if you are a member of James from the Internet's chat, you are familiar with James's disdain, rightfully so, of these trends when I say the word trend, I'm using it in terms of like graphing, right? There's the trend and then there's the outliers. And that is I that is a good use of the word. These trends, these artificial trends that are created where some human resource minion creates a word or a phrase for something that has already existed irritate the shit out of me. It's even worse than that, Peter. Bosses are back in power. So get used to companies quiet cutting and quiet firing workers this year. Bosses are quiet firing staff by making jobs unappealing through RTO mandates and harsh performance reviews. There's another phrase for quiet firing, right? Like by making the job unappealing. And that is forcing people out. Instead of conducting major layoffs, some bosses are resorting to discreet tactics to cut headcount. Experts say it's because employers have more leverage now due to fewer job opportunities. Some companies are finding more discreet ways to trim their workforce without carrying out dramatic layoffs as they attempt to cut costs during a period of economic uncertainty. While firms like Google, Meta, and Salesforce have laid off thousands of workers at the expense of intense public criticism, they're also resorting to less obvious tactics to edge workers out quietly. Technology firm Dell recently ordered hybrid employees to return to the office 3 days a week, regardless of where they live. Workers who choose to be fully remote will face limited career progression, an anonymous source told the Register, After laying off 10,000 employees in late 2022, Meta introduced more stringent performance reviews, including 2 yearly performance reviews with managers directed to put more employees into low-performing categories. Low performers also receive less bonus pay. In November, Amazon decided that employees may have their promotions blocked if they do not comply with its 3-day-a-work RTO mandate. These tactics are more commonly known as quiet firing or quiet cutting or making your employees' lives hell. Emphasis mine. A workplace trend that has taken off after the end of the zero interest rate era. It is a subtle move by bosses to make a role less appealing, motivating workers to quit rather than forcing them out through layoffs. When you force someone out through a layoff, they are eligible for unemployment. When they quit, they are often not. Warning, Will Smokes. It was below average as a dishwasher like 3 years ago. Yes, Adam. That is having done that. Like, I mean, at least when I worked in a cubicle and it had full high walls, that was one thing, and we were allowed a reasonable. Yeah, no, it was definitely to skip your raise, right? Like, do you have dishes? Are the dishes clean? Then what's your fucking problem, right? I worked in an office where we had like 1 foot walls. So we had like the whole team was all looking at each other the boss was, or the team leader was on the end and had a slightly higher desk. Some of the ways bosses are making jobs less attractive to employees include putting restrictions on where they can work, strict RTO mandates, cutting workplace perks and benefits, giving harsher performance reviews, and limiting opportunities for career progression. Ben Hardy, clinical professor of organizational behavior at London Business School, told Business Insider that although quiet firing may seem like a new workplace phenomenon, step in, Ben. Companies have always used such tactics to get rid of people. More agreed. Yeah. Ben Hardy stepping up, saying the words that need to be said. Hardy said that 20 years ago, some big, well-known companies would have car park conversations with employees to lay out their options during periods of cuts. What would happen is that your manager would say, "Can we just have a bit of a chat in the car park?" You mean away from accountability? Basically, the conversation was, you can either take redundancy and quietly go, or we can go through a performance review and it'll be miserable and grim. Which do you prefer? A lot of companies sell the rhetoric of "we are family" to employees, and public layoffs cut against that perception, Hardy said. Quiet firing is a way to maintain control over that image. Jesus Christ. Morning, K-Bars. I've never been able to seriously consider benefits of union coverage or match contributions or any of that shit. That seems like a fantasy. Like I had to work 3 years in my job to be covered under the union for meager benefits, and almost everyone gets their contracts left to run out before they need to be hired full time. Yes, this is another common tactic is quiet, not hiring people. You use them for whatever you can extract from them, and then just play the probabilities that an employee could be a very good employee, but in the aggregate, you're looking to just maximize the amount of labor that you can get from them, and they will, you just do the churn and hope for the best. Yeah. I have an experience with family, and I don't experience my family that much. Speaking of words that people want to make up and say are trends, is chrono working set to be the latest workforce trend?
Okay, I was gonna drink a water.
Oh, really?
Listen how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Whether it's hybrid working, 4-day working week, or job shares, there is no doubt that we are at a truly transformational time when it comes to the world of work and business. In this post-pandemic era, organizations are looking at more creative ways of attracting and retaining talent. This culture shift was inevitable, but the pandemic certainly seems to have accelerated the change and paved the way for more creative ways of working. And again, break out your thesaurus. When you are writing, do not use the same word twice in the same paragraph, right? Like, this is lazy writing. The latest trend, there's a new trend that organizations need to be aware of. Chrono working, which aims to fit work schedules around an individual's circadian rhythm and optimum times of productivity rather than the traditional 9-to-5 model. The term was first coined by British journalist Ellen Scott in her Working on Purpose newsletter. Scott believes that reevaluating when we work is a natural evolution of the discussions around workplace well-being. I do agree with this in principle, right? There is a thing, allegedly, right? Like according to what I read, was that back in the ye olden days, people would sleep twice a night. They would sleep for a few hours, wake up for a few hours and do some stuff, and then go back to bed and sleep for another few hours. And yeah, and like that this is they allege that there are benefits. Now, I don't have any studies, I don't have any of that kind of stuff, so your mileage may vary, but there could be value to that. You know what I mean? So like you could wake up, do some creative work, or in this case, like if you had a job, you were on work from home and it was something, that you wanted to do, then you could do that in that period, and then go back to bed and then get up and then do other stuff. I have always been a fan of, where possible, that it, like, being paid to accomplish goals rather than being paid to do hourly work, right? That way, if I can do something in less time than it, to make the same amount of money over an hourly period, if I could just make the money and do it in less time, then that's a benefit to me. You know what I mean? Imagine we would do that to tend the fire in the wild and check for predators and tend the fire. Yeah, like that kind of thing. Or also, if you, even once you get to a point where you have like less of that purely natural existence, right? There are certain cuts of meat, for instance, that, like, nowadays we use a slow cooker, and you put it in a slow cooker for like 8 hours. Those cuts of meat tend to be tougher. Tougher cuts of meat tend to be, food that is available more for poor folks as opposed to wealthier folks. So having that period at night, you can throw the thing together, put it on the fire, go back to bed. And when you wake up in the morning, then you can, you have like a hot meal of whatever ready to go, or, prepping it towards lunch, that kind of thing. Good morning, William of Orange. Slow cookers are overpowered. I don't know what that means. I'm a huge fan of slow cookers. Slow cookers and air fryers are my preferred form of cooking. Scott predicts that 2024 will be the year. Oh, I got you. Then yes. The latest slow cooker that I got like massively on sale also, um is out of pocket, right? Like it has a probe in it and it's like that kind of thing. If you're a vegan, like my wife is eats strong vegetarian. She's not full vegan but strong vegetarian. So I am across the board. I am relatively agnostic, that kind of thing. Um will be the year when chronoworking takes shape and when we will be looking more deeply into how our body clocks and natural dips and rises in energy should define our working day. To an extent, I agree. Like, it depends on how it actually looks in practice. You know, this is ultimately like the difference between theory and practice. You know what I mean? Yes. I suppose Arby's technically has meats. They definitely have what appears to be animal proteins in a consumable form. Chronoworking is especially important in a global environment where individuals are working across different time zones. It's up to Morning Ponder Monkey. Every year is the year of the mushroom. Chronoworking is especially important in global environments. It's up to organizations to set out their expectations clearly and understand that flexibility will be critical to maximizing productivity. Ugh. According to the New World of Work survey, 44.9% of businesses cited staggered or flexible work schedules as a major change in their operations going forward in the post-COVID landscape. In other words, offering employees different working schedules and times could be set to become fairly standard. Mercer's latest U.S. Flexible Working Policies and Practices survey also looks at the number of different ways workplaces are adopting more flexible options as part of their employee value proposition to attract new hires, improve employee satisfaction, and open up their talent pool. These include hybrid, remote, and part-time schedules, but also a range of other options, including compressed working weeks with 4 10-hour shifts, variable shifts starting at different times running from between 4 to 6 to 8 hours, to shift selection where employees choose their own working schedule. And just contrast that with bosses are back in power, so get used to companies quiet cutting and quiet firing workers. A separate study by McKinsey and market research firm Ipsos found that 6 in 10, 58% of Americans, now have the opportunity to work from home at least 1 day a week, and over a third have the option to work from home 5 days a week. So, yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not really seeing these changes in research. It's the same work at the same rates with the same mandatory office days and skirting around handing out benefits. Yeah. I mean, again, some of this stuff is still structured by old school thinking, right? We've always done it this way, that kind of thing. I suppose part of it would depend on what kind of research you're doing and whether or not it requires the interaction with other people. You know, if you're doing something that you're doing on your own, or at least your section can be done on your own, and you're not a bottleneck for the whoever's on the next stage of that, then doing it flexible shouldn't be an issue, right? Even if you are a bottleneck, creative scheduling could solve that problem, you know? Imagine going more private sector might see this. I'm working on a clinical psychotherapy trial right now, but my contract is up in April. Stats saying, okay. Well, I wish you the best of luck in April, and I hope it continues to work out for you. All right. Speaking of terrible things from the world of business, Wendy's planning Uber-style surge pricing where burger prices fluctuate based on demand. This is a really real thing that exists. Wendy's is preparing to test an Uber-style surge pricing model where the cost of menu items will fluctuate throughout the day based on demand. Meaning it is hilarious. Meaning a Dave's Burger will cost more during the lunch and dinner rush. The fast food chain's unappetizing plans, said to be tested in a high-stakes rollout next year, will squeeze more money out of already inflation-battered Americans who may not have the option to eat their meals during off-peak hours. Wendy's CEO Kirk Tanner put that name. That name is going to be like so, Kirk Tanner is going to be either like a man who revolutionized the industry or one of the biggest flops since Ryan Leaf. Announced a new system on a call with investors, noting the Ohio-based company will invest $20 million on high-tech menu boards that will be able to update prices in real time without incurring additional overhead costs. As we continue to show the benefit of this technology in our company-operated restaurants, franchise interest in digital menu boards should increase further, supporting sales and profit growth across the system. Who rose to the chief role earlier this month. Okay. All right. And that's so in fast food you usually have your company owned stores and then your franchisees. And it will be interesting to see how franchisees react to this kind of thing. Because they have thinner profit margins than the corporate stores. So they might wholeheartedly reject this. Dynamic pricing can allow Wendy's to be competitive and flexible with pricing, motivate customers to visit and provide them with the food they love at a great value. We will test a number of features that we think will provide an enhanced customer and crew experience. I like how I just like there's nothing about this. I mean, from the end of extracting profit, it makes sense, right? Like people have limited windows of when they can go on lunch and like that, but like unless everyone does this, you're going to drive people to like McDonald's and Burger King. Wendy's replace it used to be McDonald's was number 1 and Burger King was number 2. Wendy's overtook Burger King and now they are the number 2, you know what I mean? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot like this? You're gonna make Burger King back into the number 2 competitor. I have moved away from fast food in general, but I'm a Burger King fan. I'm also a Wendy's fan. I worked for Wendy's at one point in time. I honestly I don't have strong opinions on those kind of things. What I like about Wendy's is that I can pay $4 or $5 or $6 and get enough calories in me and feel full with their bag. All right, so let me just take this. I know someone who needs to have this. Give me 1 second while I throw it in their Discord. If it's not already there. Because they're going to love it. Unfortunately for them, they're not streaming until tomorrow. And if they happen to look in here in between now and then, they're probably going to bug out over the fact that they are not streaming today. And I think they will also appreciate a couple of these other ones. One moment. I appreciate your patience as I do some brief bookkeeping. Okay, that should be done. And now we can go back to the thing. Yeah, like Wendy's, as far as like their like working for that compared to, I haven't worked for other fast food companies, so like James covers that kind of stuff as well. And obviously James's entire audience is not here, otherwise I'd have like 10 times as many people in my chat. So yeah. Share. It's not my news, it's our news, comrade. Yeah, no, Five Guys is alright. Wendy's was good for like they actually, when I worked there, which was a million years ago, but was really had a concern about the quality of their food. You know, there was a certain amount of time that those burgers were on the grill. And then once the burgers were done being on the grill, then they were put into like a side thing where they could be converted into chili meat. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Say hi to chat, Stampy. Now go be elsewhere. We don't have a Nando's. All right. China's plan to reshape world trade on its own terms. I think I have two. I did not get a chance to tighten up my. I did. Okay, I did that right. All right. I try to keep relevant articles together so that we, transition from similar topics within the space. Morning, Cudio. Sorry I didn't get to your message until like an hour and a half after 5:00. You were in and out yesterday morning. I did indicate during that stream that I wasn't going to be around for the 5:00 show because I had an appointment. I should have also posted in there, and for that I do apologize. China's plan to reshape world trade on its own terms. Friction with the West has prompted Beijing to build its own alternative system focused on developing nations. Even during the first blush of the honeymoon period that attended China's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001, it was clear that Washington and Beijing were, as a Chinese idiom has it, sharing a bed but dreaming different dreams. Bill Clinton, then U.S. president hailed China's membership as removing Beijing's government from vast areas of people's lives and promoting political reform. Jiang Zemin, China's then leader, had a different take. He warned that America's real motive was to westernize and divide socialist countries. More than 20 years later, that early friction has metastasized. The WTO, which holds its biennial ministerial conference this week, has fallen hostage to sharp divisions between the U.S. and China as trade friction escalates between China and the West. Oh, between China and the West. Like, who is doing the trade friction? Who is preventing trade from going through? Is it China? Is China doing that? Is that on China's plate? And again, don't get me wrong, all states are bastards. But we as a world would benefit severely from cooperation over competition. As the World Trade Body falters, China is accelerating efforts to construct an alternative trade architecture that is insulated from U.S. influence and centered upon the developing world. China has free trade agreements with countries and territories accounting for almost 40% of its exports. So these are Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Australia, Indonesia, Philippines, Chile, Pakistan, Cambodia. Like, it's not an insignificant, and you'll notice a great deal of these are within its regional sphere. In this, Beijing's main strategy is to capitalize, on ties with the global south, fostered through its $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative, an investment program launched in 2013. It counts more than 140 countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and elsewhere as its participants. The architecture under construction revolves around a China-centric network of bilateral and regional free trade agreements which allow for trade at low tariffs while also promoting direct investment flows. This network, which currently includes 28 countries and territories that take close to 40% of China's exports, means that if the WTO's mandate to keep the world open for liberalized trade unravels, China will have at least a partial backup system in place. None of China's FTAs include the U.S. or countries inside the EU. It is a smart move. And it's funny. There are people who, like, I accidentally pissed somebody off this weekend and I wasn't trying to, but they're talking about how China's economy is falling apart, right? It's only falling apart under a certain context, right? Like, if viewed from a particular angle, it could look bad. But if you look at it in the sense of long-term investment and future benefits, the future returns on those investments, then that is the way that you should look at it. Exports from China are 17% of total exports. It'll hurt them if we stop trading. Oh, you're not wrong. Like, it would, if the United States, Canada, the European Union, and again, this is 40% of the exports. So the other 60% of the export market goes other places. The difference being is that the EU and the United States and other Western nations are heavily hinged on the World Trade Organization, where China has both the World Trade Organization and their Belt and Road Initiative. That's the key difference, right? Like, no, there's no expectation that anyone would like voluntarily decide, okay, we're just gonna shit can the WTO now. It's that, going on to the next article, WTO in damage control mode as Abu Dhabi agenda unravels. The failure of WTO member countries to provide anything meaningful at the group's 13 ministerial conference could further erode the Geneva-based organization's ability to create new global trade rules. So like to draw on a sports metaphor. If you're not into sports, just bear with me. But back in the day, you had two successful football leagues, right? Which eventually became the NFC and the AFC. You had the NFL and the AFL, the National Football League and the American Football League. Because they were competitive like that, and they were both seen as valid, right? It is way back in the day. Then later on, you had the NFL, those two combined leagues, and the USFL, which was an upstart league, but was able to get major talent and create a viable football league. However, the NFL was such an established entity that they were basically, through a variety of different means, were able to choke out the USFL, and they kind of absorbed a bunch of their stuff into them. Those two examples are two potential futures for the WTO and the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Prior to 2013, the WTO was the obvious NFL. There was no competition. They were, they had the power, they had the strength, they had the organization, everybody was there. Now, if China can establish the Belt and Road Initiative as a viable alternative, that puts pressure on the WTO because people don't have to do what they say. Now, there's all sorts of conversations to be had around imperialism and whether what the WTO does is imperialism, what the Belt and Road Initiative does is imperialism, all these kind of things. That's not what I'm talking about. That is a separate conversation. I'm just talking about the fact that these are systems of trade, worldwide systems of trade. And prior to 2013, there was no alternative. And now in 2024, it's increasingly looking like there is a viable alternative to the World Trade Organization. And we'll see what effect that has on everything. Future of world trade is about to face a turning point, whether nationalist policies displace an 8-decade shift towards rules-based global commerce. This week's biennial World Trade Organization conference in the United Arab Emirates will see its 164 member countries try to reach deals on the fate of the world's fish stocks, the future of digital trade, and how countries can safeguard their food security. but agreement on any of those issues may not be enough to salvage a global institution that is increasingly torn apart by the conflicting goals of its members: economic fragmentation fueled by Russia's war in Ukraine, and retreating American leadership on global trade. You could put the world's greatest matchmaker, arbiter, and negotiator in charge of the WTO right now, and I don't think much could happen, said Rufus Yerxa, the former U.S. trade official, who was WTO deputy director from 2005 to 2013. It was that year again coming up. It's so weird. The failure of WTO member countries to provide anything meaningful at the group's 13th ministerial conference could further erode the Geneva-based organization's ability to create new global trade rules and prevent a world in which competing economic blocs cause higher prices for consumers and businesses. That's cap. That's cap. Competition lowers prices, doesn't raise them. Okay? That's like, I mean, this is your game. I understand the rules. I mean, obviously, this is propaganda, but I understand the rules of your game better than you do if you think that competition raises prices. That's not how that works. It's literally not how that works. There are so many things that could go badly at the Ministerial for Global Trade and Economic Growth, and the question is whether enough WTO members can do damage control and curb some of their protectionist and populist leanings. Protectionism and populism, isolationism, these kind of things are damaging to to trade organizations, generally speaking. Whatever you feel about them, the idea of trade doesn't interact well with protectionism and isolationism. That's good. It's good to shake yourself out of, old habits, right? Like, no, you're fine. Speak your thoughts. Speak your truth. As long as it's in the realm of what we talk about here, it's usually not a problem. Like, the last person who became a problem was talking about conspiracy theories, right? Like, and we gave them all sorts of room in which to, like, stop talking, and they just decided not to, and like that. United States, one of the main architects of the WTO system last century, increasingly questions the organization's underlying structure. 2 decades after shepherding China into the what do you want, Moose? You can't go up there, dude. You're going to step on my keyboard. Time for kittens. U.S. leaders of both parties accuse the organization of doing little to bring Beijing's economic system in line with fair and open global trade. For decades, the United States has been proud to champion the international rules-based order and the multilateral trading system. Get good, skill issue. But the functioning and fairness of this order are now in question. China still embraces a state-directed, non-market approach to the economy and trade, despite being a WTO member for 22 years. It's like, you need to follow our rules. And China's like, no. Former President Donald Trump, who repeatedly busted WTO norms during his term in office, is now threatening to impose an additional 10% tariff on all other countries if he takes the White House, a move that would violate WTO rules. Wait, are we not talking about how Donald Trump violated the functioning and fairness of this order that are now in question? Is that not a state-directed, non-market approach to the economy and trade? It's only funny when I do it. That's the rule here. He also pledged to revoke permanent normal trade relations with China, setting the stage for additional tariffs on top of those he imposed on more than $300 billion worth of Chinese goods in 2018 and 2019. Trump's tough, and this is what I was talking about yesterday with Dame Karen, and how like the personality shift that the United States undergoes, especially as the parties have gotten farther and farther apart in some areas, can make it very difficult to to take the United States seriously anymore. You used to have the so-called deep state, right? Like this continuation of general trends, right? Like you weren't going to go ahead and flip the script and toss a table and that kind of thing from one administration to the other. And now we are so far beyond that. And it's not just Trump. Like, don't get me wrong. These things were happening prior to Trump. Trump is a symptom of this more than like an actual disease, though your mileage may vary. But yeah, it's that kind of thing. China, other countries, right? Like, because this is not just about China. It's about every potential trade partner that we have, both real and future and past, but could want to trade with them again. All that kind of stuff gets thrown up in the air because, well, in 9 months, you are going to potentially elect another, a person who's going to get all janky with the rules. So, how can I negotiate with you in good faith? Right? How can we have any expectation that you're going to follow through on what you say you're going to follow through on when you had a guy who would just not do that anymore? Hey, right? Why would people make a deal with us now on key WTO issues if they don't even know whether the next administration will accept the deals? I'm not out of pocket, right? And I didn't pre-read the article. Despite the contentious backdrop, WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo Iweala bristles at the suggestion that the WTO is dead in the water. I'm not the kind to work for a paralyzed or moribund organization. I have too much to do to waste my time on that. If it's moribund and paralyzed, I'm out. It's simple. That's this this champ right here, this queen, just like if y'all can't get your shit together, I'm out. I'm just out. I don't know, Ponder Monkey. Why would they do that? All right, moving on. And then there's this. Commerce Secretary Raimondo, U.S. set to become a major hub of leading edge logic chip manufacturers. Great. Sounds great, right? U.S. Secretary said CHIPS and Science Act investment will put the U.S. on a track to manufacture roughly 20% of leading edge logic chips by the end of the decade. Sounds awesome. Today, U.S. fabricators make 0% of these chips. Okay. You got a lot of hope. You got a lot of hope, and we're going into an election like we've already discussed. Taiwan is definitely number one. The Biden administration is aiming to make the U.S. a major manufacturer of state-of-the-art chips before 2030 to compete on the global market. Also, Trump doesn't like AI. Our investments in leading-edge logic chip manufacturing will put this country on track to produce roughly 20% of the world's leading-edge chips. It's a big deal. Why is that a big deal? Because, folks, today we're at zero. The plan will result in hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, but it requires infrastructure investment. And because it requires infrastructure investment, that requires money. And your government, our government, my government, currently not good at doing funding. Currently not good at doing infrastructure. Currently not good at doing investment. China is taking an increasingly ambitious role in increasing their own chip production. Again, I wonder why they would do that. Chinese chip maker Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation appears to have defied U.S. sanctions in recent months by manufacturing advanced chips and is preparing to produce 5-nanometer chips for technology corporation Huawei. If only someone could have seen this coming. Like, it is absolutely killing me that you are getting outplayed and it's like right there in front of you. And we as a country are going to walk into making it worse. That's what I see right now. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I don't want to get into that fucking conversation again, but we're about to make a really bad decision. AI chip race. Grok, the good Grok, not the bad Grok. CEO takes on Nvidia, claims most startups will use speedy LPUs by end of 2024. Bold claim, right? One, that you're going to take on Nvidia. Two, that you're going to have most startups using LPUs. And three, that you're going to do that by the end of 2024. Everyone is talking about Nvidia's jaw-dropping earnings result, up a whopping 265% from a year ago. It's crazy. But don't sleep on Grok, the Silicon Valley-based company creating new AI chips for large language model inference. Last week, Grok suddenly enjoyed a viral moment most startups just dream about. Sure, it wasn't as big a social media splash as even one of Elon Musk's posts about the totally unrelated large language model Grok, but I'm certain the folks at NVIDIA took notice after Matt Schumer posted on Twitter about Grok's wild tech that is serving Mixtral at nearly 500 tokens per second, with answers that are pretty much instantaneous. Followed up with a public demo of lightning fast answers engine showing factual cited answers with hundreds of words in less than a second. And suddenly it seemed like everyone in AI was talking about and trying out Grok's chat app on its website, where users can choose from output served up by Llama or Mistral. While no company can challenge NVIDIA's dominance right now, they enjoy over 80% of the high-end chip market. Other AI chip startups like Samba Nova and Cerebras have yet to make much headway, even with AI inference. NVIDIA just reported $22 billion of fourth quarter revenue. Grok CEO and founder Jonathan Ross told me in an interview that the eye-watering cost of inference make his startups offering a super fast, cheaper option specifically for LLM use. In a bold claim, Ross told me that we are probably going to be the infrastructure that most startups are using by the end of the year. Okay, so that's different. Oh no, it does say startups. My bad. I took that as companies, not startups. But that actually makes much more sense. Yeah, why would you? You still need other models for training, but you can rent those now. So again, I don't see any sign that AI is slowing down in 2024. Right? People keep telling me there's a bubble. I don't see it. MWC Microsoft pitches AI access principles to offset OpenAI's competition concern. On the heels of Microsoft's investment and partnership with Mistral, the company continues to work hard to try to dispel the image that it's blocking competition through its deep partnership and financial stake in OpenAI. On Monday at Mobile World Congress, the company launched a new framework it's calling AI Access Principles, an 11-point plan that Microsoft said will govern how we will operate our AI data center, infrastructure, and other important AI assets around the world. The points cover areas such as the building and operation of an app store to allow businesses to pick and choose different LLMs and other AI products, and a commitment to keeping a company's proprietary data out of its training models. It also includes a commitment to let customers change cloud providers or services within the cloud if they choose to. It also details a focus on building cybersecurity around AI services, attention to building data centers and other infrastructure in an environmentally sound way, and education investments. Brad Smith announced the framework today. Although the implication here is that Microsoft is open to dialogue and conversation with stakeholders, ironically, Smith delivered the news in a keynote speech with no scope for follow-up questions. The announcement comes at the same time that Microsoft is coming under increasing regulatory scrutiny for its $13 billion investment in OpenAI, which currently gives it a 49% stake in the startup, that is leading the charge for generative AI services globally. January, the European competition watchdog said that it was assessing whether the investment falls under antitrust rules. The take specific I'm going to say that's supposed to be a they. Could you please proofread your articles? They take specific aim at how third parties might use Microsoft platform and services to develop AI products, a critical business area and enterprise service that the company hopes to develop in coming years, not just with the carriers who attend MWC, but businesses and organizations from a much wider array of industry. You need to watch Werewolf. Page not found. Page not found. They pushed this article on me about Rust, right? Like, Rust is I think is one of the Linux programming languages or something like that. Back when I was... Interesting. Back when I was starting to try to take up coding, and I started learning some Python, Homie Arun said that I should learn Rust. And like that. But like I went with Python. And I learned a little bit, but like it required more of a commitment than I was able to do. And over the past 2 or 3 days, whenever I open up Google on my phone, I was getting this recommendation for this article about Rust and about how Rust users concerned about complexity and low usage, right? Like apparently it's not super popular as far as I can tell from that article. So I finally opened it up and I added to the list here so that we can cover it, touch on it briefly. Google seemed to think it was very important, and now it's gone. Well, there it is. Weird. Did you just change the... They changed the linky? This is deep state, man. They're trying to prevent you from knowing about the Rust issue. All right, so briefly. The biggest worries for the future of Rust among users are too much complexity and too little usage in the tech industry. The 2023 State of Rust survey finds. While the use of Rust language by professional programmers continues to grow, Rust users expressed concerns. The report, which was produced by the survey team, slight jump in the number of respondents that self-identify as a Rust user, up from 91% to 93%. 43% were most concerned about Rust becoming too complex, a 5% increase from 2022. 42% were most concerned about low usage in the industry, and 32% were most concerned about Rust developers and maintainers not being properly supported. So it sounds like this is a programming language that has adherence and they are not getting the support, and so they have concerns. And I mean, that's fair. I don't know improved memory safety. Yeah, like, again, I am out of my element talking about Rust, right? Like, I don't know, why is Rust better? Like, why is it something that somebody should be using, that kind of thing. Perception of difficulty, 67% that they have not had the chance to prioritize learning Rust. A third, majority of their coding. Third, almost 40% use Rust at work, but that's down from last year. Rust expertise generally has increased, with 40%, 47% considering themselves productive using Rust, up from 42%. Linux was the most popular operating system among Rust users, with almost 70% using it regularly. Visual Studio Code was the most popular editor. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess you got to do more work at getting it out there. You got to convince people. You got to evangelize Rust. Google DeepMind CEO addresses the Gemini debacle. It's a whole debacle at this point, and says image generator could be back in a couple of weeks. You think Ben Shapiro referred to it as a debacle? No, he said it was going to destroy reality. Google DeepMind at the Mobile World Conference. My man Demis Hassabis. He said a well-intended feature had been applied too bluntly. Google paused access, if you're not aware, Google paused access to its image generator last week after users found that the tool would produce historically inaccurate images, including racially diverse images of the U.S. founding fathers and Nazis. Speaking at the MWC, said the company had intended for Gemini to show a universal range of possibilities in the images it produces, accounting for the many different countries where Gemini is available. That, which is a well-intended feature, was applied, it turns out, too bluntly. Welcome to the internet, my guy. We care, of course, about historical accuracy, so we've taken that feature offline while we fix that. And we hope to have that back online in very short order the next couple of weeks. Some of the images generated are inaccurate or even offensive. We're grateful for users' feedback and are sorry the feature didn't work well. It is a tough game to play. Speaking of tough games to play, and just a hell of a headline, the end of the chip war when Sam Altman turns on capitalism. Yeah, they were trying to do. My impression is that they were trying to do a balance between increasing diverse representation and not having people be able to do wildly racist shit with it. And somewhere in those two things together, it just ended up with stuff. and also, like, we don't live in a world where people have nuance as much as they used to. That could have happened, and then people could have said, "Hey, like, we probably want to work on this," and it wouldn't necessarily have had to be yanked off. They could have worked on it, but instead, we have Ben Shapiro telling us that the fact that it's producing a picture of allegedly a black king of France, that somehow that's going to destroy reality, and here we are. All right, this isn't too long. I'm fascinated to hear how Sam Altman turned on capitalism. From Apolline Guillot, I think that's French. Yeah, they're from France. My French pronunciation sucks worse than my Chinese, right? Dear reader, I think capitalism is awesome. I love capitalism. And I think that if AGI really truly fully happens, I can imagine all these ways that it breaks capitalism. Sam Altman shared his vision with Forbes in 2023. Now he might be trying to implement it. Last week, he announced that he was planning to restructure the global production of electronic chips, and that to do this, he would need a lot of money, 5 to 7 trillion, i.e., 7% of the world's total GDP in 2023. His goal to coordinate all the actors in the sector on a global scale so they can work together to produce more chips and better ones. Now, the the current way that the whole chips sector is set up is not getting the job done, right? And what we're seeing is like the chip war between US and China. You have one company in Holland that makes the lithography machines. You have one company in Taiwan that does most of the high-end chips. This is not when you're too highly specialized within an environment, then you are prone to the vulnerabilities of being too highly specialized within an environment. And because in this environment, people need these chips, then you are going to get more and more people who are attempting to make these chips, and more people need these chips because when we look at what it takes to run these larger and larger models, or a wider variety of models, either of those scenarios, you need more chips. And I understand a lot of people are freaking out about this, this $7 trillion. What is he trying to do? That's infrastructure, right? Whatever you feel about Sam Altman, and again, he's a capitalist, he's a CEO, he's part of Y Combinator. He seems like a, relatively all right person, allegedly. But he's still a CEO and all that kind of stuff. He's not my friend. We don't hang out. But we need infrastructure. And I've talked about it, like the infrastructure to build chip fabs in the United States requires not only the chip fab, but it requires a reworking of our electrical grid. It requires investment in our educational system to educate people so that they can have the knowledge required to get the education to work at these chip fabs. Like, there is so much infrastructure investment that needs to be done just in the United States that, for whatever reason, isn't included in the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act is just for, they're like loans and subsidies and other shenanigans for chip fab companies to build chip fabs. But what Taiwan found out when TSMC built their chip fab here was, bro, you don't have enough people who know how to do this job. That's a problem. And that's what I see Sam Altman doing here, is that he is taking a lead on infrastructure in a particular domain that is relevant to the work that he does. And it seems to be, from everything that I've gathered, that widespread idea that not only one aspect of this infrastructure, but the entirety of it, that all of that needs to be developed, and it hasn't been for so long. And regular, everyday, regular schmegular capitalism isn't doing it. Altman's own own startup Rain AI is already doing that by developing microprocessors supposed to imitate the human brain. It's not hard to see why. All existing AI systems rest on the abundance and quality of these little pieces of silicium? Maybe it's French. A few nanometers small and covered in transistors. Little switches, which, by turning on and off, produce a series of zeros and ones, which are the bedrock of all information. We must keep in mind that AI systems, through their energy consumption and the price of chips, have astronomical production costs. Those made by NVIDIA, the best on the market, sell for $30,000 to $40,000 a piece, and several million of these are needed to produce a decent AI system. Right, but how much do they cost to produce? See what that sentence did there? Did a little flip-floppy. They have an astronomical production cost. Talking about the... Okay, they were talking about the AI system, so I guess that's fair. I'm being critical. I'm being overly critical, unnecessarily critical. So I'll pull it back. That's on me. Reliance is tainted with geopolitical concerns. Yes, the global sector is dominated by actors like the TSMC, which makes the graphic chips of all the leaders on the global market, such as Intel and NVIDIA. I'm trying, old lobster. It just still sometimes slips through. And so, in the last decade, there's been a chip war, also the title of historian Chris Miller's 2022 book. Short, the global chip market is turning into a merciless jungle where states, companies, and financiers are all trying to outdo each other. Investors, sensing lightning fast growth, are ready to put everything they have into companies closely or even loosely involved in the production of chips. Sam Altman's response to this frenetic competition has been interpreted in two ways. The classical approach would be to think that he's entering the fray in order to build an unshakable monopoly. Like a perfect diplomat for silicium, he's been approaching the likes of the UAE, SoftBank, or TSMC to raise the funds needed to radically integrate his value chain. Aware of the energy challenges involved in such a production project, Altman has preemptively been investing considerable funds in nuclear fusion. In the world he's trying to build, there would be no shortage and no competition. But what if this hyper concentration were the sign of a general suspicion towards the very notion of a free market. Oh, now we're getting spicy. This is where the second interpretation arises. Altman could be planning to break market capitalism in its present form, which he sees because he sees it as suboptimal. Position calls to mind that of Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Silicon Valley guru in his time. In his book 1 to 0, which reads like a manifesto, he shows to which extent free competition could paradoxically lead to a limitation of freedom through controlling entities like the FMI, the WTO, or sovereign states. He writes, really, it's competition, not business, that is like war. Allegedly necessary, supposedly valiant, but ultimately destructive. Okay, it's one of those, the worst person you know said something correct. This turning of capitalism on itself is similar to a trend which economist Cedric Durand describes as techno-feudalism in his book of the same name. And also Giannis, what's his name, the Greek dude, got that same vibe. Where classical capitalism rested on competition, which, in theory, encourages investment in order to produce goods and services. This techno-feudalism, said to be embodied in Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, works on the basis of uncompetitive logics of annuities. The likes of Google, Meta, and Amazon invest massively to build informational infrastructures which allow them to organize offer and demand, namely through the analysis of data and the anticipation of behavior. Take Google's Android system, for example. I was talking about you, not to you. No. Morning, Three Geese. Where was I? Take Google's Android operating system, for example. It provides the firm with data from all smartphones, and Elon Musk is trying to do the same with his satellite network, Starlink. Like lords of the Middle Ages who dominated their serfs, today's tech firms are trying to monopolize not just the means of production, but also the means of coordination in order to derive an annuity from other people's activities. But Altman's approach is a little different, where Google, Meta, and Co. base their business models on intangible assets, data algorithms. OpenAI is anticipating and coordinating access to tangible resources, energy, chips, to ensure the development of AI. In short, it's as if he wanted to avoid a war by attempting a preemptive push. Now, the use of that particular word is loaded. But yeah, no, this is, yeah, that could be a fair assessment. Oh, we got a bunch more news to go. It's not, I mean, yeah, it's an opinion piece, right? But I think I like the fact that they put out an alternative point of view. You know what I mean? That I can vibe with. All right. I think we're going to do like some back and forth here because I don't think I organize these properly. So Real quick, what do we got? It's already 9:15. Gee Willikers. Australian scientists 3D print titanium structure with supernatural strength. Researchers were able to build a new material that's 50% stronger than strongest alloy known to man by laser-powered bed fusion approach. Morning, Dame Karen. It hit a lot of the common issues we point out in the left, like profit maximization, market volatility, concentration of power, vulnerabilities in global supply chains, concerns related to labor exploitation and inequality. Yeah. There is something because I call out, especially my fellow people on the left, I call out the idea that you need to do self-reflection when you find yourself in agreement with terrible people, right? Like the most common. I will tell you more. I will tell you more. We just got here, so we haven't even started this, right? Like in it, whatever you feel about Ukraine, right? Ukraine and Russia and the war that's happening in Ukraine. Whatever your feelings are about that. If you find yourself on the same side of the issue as Putin and the Republican Party, you might it could be valid. I'm not saying that there couldn't be valid reasons to find yourself in that community. I'm just saying you should definitely have done some self-reflection prior to that moment and after that moment and ongoing. What is it about this that finds myself aligned in this area? So when in that letter, I found myself agreeing with Peter Thiel, I put a pin in that and made a note to, to make sure that it just happens to be a weird place where me and Pete cross, and I am not on some greater trend that's putting me in alignment with Peter Thiel. That's all I'm saying. All right. Australian scientists, researchers at the RMIT University in Australia have succeeded in 3D printing a titanium structure that's at least 50% stronger than the strongest alloy made by man and used in aerospace applications. The new metamaterial could open up new applications in aerospace and medicine. The metamaterials are materials engineered by assembling multiple elements made using metals or plastics, but deliver properties that supersede those seen in naturally occurring materials. Researchers have been using this approach to create newer materials that can withstand extreme temperature and pressure demands in challenging environments such as aerospace. Researchers took this one step further by achieving the metamaterial design using 3D printing or additive manufacturing in their process. Team innovatively used the technique to improve the lattice structure that occurs naturally in nature. And so I'm assuming that this is an example, and what it appears that we're looking at are like cross sections of tubes, right, in an X format. So the load is going to be dispersed across the triangle. You see a lot of triangles and loads. Go look at bridges. Right? You'll see a lot of triangles incorporated into bridges. And they appear to be cylinders because I'm making assumptions here, but this section right here is open and has like a a little line of material in it, right? So it could be that there are lines of material going through the center of each of these tubes, which are providing additional structural support. And then for whatever reason, they are open on the end here. Like, they're open in this particular format. It's interesting. Like, there's a lot going on here that I don't understand. It would need to understand more in order to... Oh, here we go. Thank you. Using 3D printing, a research team... Oh, below the photo it says, a 3D printed crystal titanium lattice structure, the world's strongest metamaterial. But here's what I wanted to see. Using 3D printing, a research team designed a hollow tubular lattice. All right, with a thin band running inside. See, sometimes it's fun to figure stuff out on your own and then see if you're correct. By effectively merging two complementary lattice structures to distribute. There's TTO. Just all I'm asking is just look over your article. Just read it. Read it out loud. Do what I do. When you read it out loud, you will find the place that, where you made a mistake and then can easily fix that, which I can't do. I can't fix your mistakes. To distribute stress evenly, we avoid the weak points where stress normally concentrates. These two elements show strength and lightness never before seen in nature. Okay, so this is what we're looking at is these colors, the more intense the colors going all the way up to yellow and red, those indicate stress points. And then in this, right, so you got a 6-way tube here, and it leaves stress points on the inside, but by changing your topology with these cross sections, you eliminate most, if not all of that. There's just a little bit right there. It's cool. Like, if you're into this kind of thing, it's really cool. And they, what up, Spelt? They used a 3D printing approach called laser powder bed fusion. They use a high-powered laser beam to melt layers of metal powder into place. Double lattice design ensured that it halved the stress at the weak points in the design, and any cracks in the design were also deflected along the structure, thereby improving its toughness. That is cool. This is super cool. If you're into this kind of thing, it's cool. If you're not into this kind of thing, it's like, what are these people talking about? I don't understand. But trust us. Trust us, it's cool. All right. So then there's this headline. NVIDIA CEO predicts the death of coding. And Jensen Huang says AI will do the work, so kids don't need to learn. Believes coding languages are a thing of the past. It's bold. We're doing bold statements in the headlines today. Yeah, no, everything's been great. I mean, it's not even clickbait. It's a quote, right? Like they're. I cannot deny the accuracy of the headlines. Speaking of the World Government Summit in Dubai, Huang argued that because the rapid investment made by AI, learning to code should no longer be a priority. Okay, that's a little different than don't learn to code. Learning to code has long been a vital skill, pushed by many industry heads as vital to success. But the latest narrative looks to break this tradition. So I would advocate for, like, there's like mind games, and not in the pejorative sense, but mind games and games you play with your own mind in order to stay sharp, and things like that. Meditation is a form of mind game in that regard. And I have heard from some people who are into coding that coding is a form of meditation, right? And like code a half hour a day, code an hour a day, this kind of thing. So at the very least, very least, I would advocate to continue to learn to code. If coding interests you, then that is the reason that you should do it. You know what I mean? Thanks to advancements made in the field of generative AI, natural language processing has shown promise to be the future of coding, eradicating the need for young professionals to spend hundreds of hours learning specific coding languages. Don't get me wrong, the AIs are improving at how well they code, but we are not there yet. And because we are not there yet, it's difficult to say when we're going to get there, right? Like, your boy advocates and believes that we are headed towards a world in which we have a surplus that allows us, and that we also do have more equitable resource distribution, and also the automation of all work, right? Like, those are foundational to my beliefs, my like political system, what have you, what I talk about on the channel. I am not telling you that you should go out and quit your job tomorrow, because I don't have a date on when it's actually going to occur. You still need to survive in between now and then. So if you are on a track for coding, you should continue to code until it looks like coding will be eliminated in its entirety by the AI bots, and then you use it as a meditative technique at a a game of the mind, as opposed to a mind game, a game of the mind, right? That will always be with you. Though you might be replaced in the doing something productive, if AI does all the coding in the future, there always have been people who tinker, right? You could be a coding tinker. Oh, we did a whole thing on that in No Gray's chat the other day. Reed was there. The philosophy of AI and the AI of philosophy, and it was a whole thing. It was a fun time. It's our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program. Now, this is a different statement again. Like, when I talk about automating all labor, I say all labor should be automated. All of it. Every single last thing of labor should be automated, so that no one has to do the labor. It's the has to part. You can still choose to program, right? You can still choose to do a particular type of labor that speaks to you, but it's the has to. No one should have to do labor in order to survive. No one should have to do labor in order to create. They should do the labor that they wish to do in the world. and that the programming language is human. Everybody in the world is now a programmer. This is the miracle of artificial intelligence. The time otherwise spent learning to code should instead be invested in expertise in industries such as farming, biology, manufacture, and education. I also don't hate that. I don't think it's mutually exclusive, right? It isn't all doom and gloom. Yeah, like eventually AI is coming for farming and biology and manufacturing and education, but like understanding the process of farming, not that one would be a farmer, but one understands the process of farming. Again, the robots should absolutely do the farming. Y'all should have been there for Colossus, the Foreman project. If you weren't there, yeah, I put it in the general tab there in the Discord. It's available on Vimeo. It's a decent quality, given its time. The story stands up even if the technology doesn't. It is a little dated in that regard, but Adam, that's exactly one of the questions that is discussed within the movie, right? Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets discussed within the movie. The only downside to the movie is that it was definitely created it was either created in that slice of life, like, you know how sometimes a story is written or filmed or, whatever, and it doesn't give you the end? It's like, we're going to look at a portion of this. We're going to tell this story within a portion of this continuum. It kind of feels like that. It definitely sets up the possibility of a sequel that never happened. It's fair. Like, you're on another time schedule, but that's why I wanted the movie available for y'all. But like, I know that the books have there's 3 books. There's a trilogy of the books. So they must have just shot the first book and had open potential for the second and third. And somebody was talking about doing a remake back in 2013. The number of the day is 2013. Starring Will Smith. And fine. Like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, and it would give him because it's not like it's not an action movie. It's like suspenseful and stuff like that. But I just all I can think of is iRobot, right? Like, Will Smith is gonna fight Colossus, the AI. Yeah, I really feel like my man should like go into producing or something. Just, I understand you enjoy acting. I heard a new Tron movie is coming. What up, L? Welcome in. Everybody's showing up. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, couple on some moon landing stuff, follow up, and that kind of thing. So a private company, yeah. I don't know where we are with it. It took 1 million years for a second Tron to get made. There's already a sequel. If you haven't seen it, Dave Karen, like Tron Legacy or something like that. It was okay. Like, I didn't hate it. It wasn't Tron like the first movie. You have seen it. Okay. So, like, the first movie was good, and the second movie, like, it was acceptable. Um, Again, I didn't hate it. And it had some of my favorite actors in it, right? So, anyways, moon landing. Private company landed spacecraft on the moon. This is apparently a picture of it, and apparently it's fallen over. And they cut the mission short, and they're closing up shop as of today. That was it. They did one thing, and it's done, and now they're done. Intuitive Machines, the Houston company that built and flew the spacecraft, said Monday it will continue to collect data until sunlight no longer shines on the solar panels. Based on the position of Earth and the Moon, officials expect that to happen Tuesday morning. That's 2 to 3 days short of what NASA and other customers had been counting on. Well, they landed and they were supposed to do some tests, but it fell over, so they can't do as many tests as they would like to because they're not going to have enough power to the thing. No, I don't view any of this as wasting money, right? This is what space travel, experimental space travel looks like, right? Like a bunch of rockets blew up before Elon Musk blew up his rockets, right? People died in the course of this thing. Space travel is hard. Landing on the moon is hard. And this is like we did that yesterday. It was like it just feels like that, especially between the Japanese lander that we're going to talk about in a minute and this lander, that we need to develop. We as humans need to develop this technology to to make it stand in the appropriate direction, whatever that looks like. We can't have these things falling over because it's not like somebody could just walk out and fix it. Lander ended up in a small degraded crater with a 12-degree slope. That's the closest a spacecraft has ever come to the South Pole, an area of interest because of the suspected frozen waters in the permanently shadowed crater there. So NASA paid $118 million to deliver 6 experiments. Other customers had also had items. There was an art piece sent up there for some reason. Instead of landing upright, the 14-foot Odysseus ended up on its side, hampering communication with Earth. Japan's lander ended up on the wrong side too, just last month. Only 5 countries have landed successfully on the moon. Intuitive Machines became the first private business. Another U.S. company gave it a try last month, but didn't make it to the moon because of a fuel leak. And like that. This is a moon is always messing with us. There's a whole thing about that. Like people were, I don't think that the moon has any effect on human beings. They're too small to be affected by titles. But every so often, stuff gets wild, and I question my preconceived assumptions. I don't tell anybody how to be. You be you, you know. So the Japan Move lander survives lunar night. So unlike the American one, which, gave it up after a day or two, the Japan moon lander had survived the harsh lunar night. the sunless and freezing equivalent to 2 Earth weeks. Last night, a command was sent to Slim and a response received. The craft was put into sleep mode after an awkward landing, left its solar panels facing the wrong way and unable to generate power. Change in sunlight direction later allowed it to send pictures back, but it shut down again as lunar night fell. JAXA, that's the Japanese version of NASA, said that at the time that Slim was not designed for harsh lunar nights. Said it planned to try to operate again from mid-February when the sun would shine on it. News that Slim has rebooted itself after the cold lunar night is significant. Surviving lunar night is one of the key technological challenges to be overcome. We are to establish long-lived robotic or human missions on the moon. It's like, which one? Opportunity? Is Opportunity the one that it was only supposed to operate for like 9 months and it operated for like 13 years? That kind of thing. I love that shit. I get it, Dave Carrot. Like, and that's why, like many things, this is not a hill that I'm willing to die on and have an argument and do knockdown dragouts. You're not going to convince me, and I'm not going to try and convince you. Like, it is, we're just, you know what I mean? And Hubble. So this was a new word for me. Speaking of hot take headlines, is the future of open source software at risk due to protestware? What in the hell is protestware? Software developers don't develop everything from scratch. Just like car manufacturing, you rely on pieces that have been manufactured by others. So it's the same with software developers, whether in the open source world or industry. They tend to reuse a lot of stuff others have done. Open source ecosystems can contain millions of individual items. So what happens if someone adds malware to their particular piece of software to protest, say, the war in Ukraine? Well, that has happened, with the result that some users in Russia and Belarus have had their computers hacked. Because of the interconnectedness of the software ecosystem, people who contribute or maintain just one piece of the gigantic puzzle can have quite a bit of power. Sometimes a maintainer, the main person driving an open source project, may make an honest mistake when developing software. Well, more recently, with the war in Ukraine, yeah. If maintainers want to raise awareness about something specific, they turn their open source project into malware. Or malware. They reprogrammed the library purposefully to attack machines located in Russia or Belarus. Others have taken less drastic action and merely introduce a message or document urging support for whatever side they're on. In a paper titled In War and Peace, the Impact of World Politics on Software Ecosystems, again, I can't say it enough, write it down. Anyone who says, why did you make this political, doesn't live in the world, because the world is political. Everything is political. Everything. Everything. Yeah, I would have gone with Ain't Tifa. So AINTIFA. Ain't Tifa. Right? And then you would have got the AI right there in the word. But still funny. So we have malignant protestware. Software that intentionally damages or takes control of the user's computer without their knowledge or consent. Benign protestware, software created to raise awareness, and developer saying. Okay, if you're gonna do bullet points and you're gonna use numbers on your bullet points, please make them different numbers. Developer sanctions, which affect a software ecosystem more broadly. For instance, MongoDB decided not to sell its products to Russian users, and GitHub suspended Russian accounts. So, I mean, like, members of this community have made good arguments and helped me transition from a open source, closed source, imbalance idea to more of an open source all the way around. Morning, Barkeeter J. Like open source all the way around kind of idea, kind of format. And I feel like that protestware definitely undermines that, because, I mean, to an extent, right? Like, it's still open source. It's just you're putting the onus on the people involved to try and analyze for every possible issue. Right? The whole point behind open source is that, like, the community is supposed to locate bugs and malware within your code is a bug or something to that effect. And it seems to be like the opposite of what you would want to do. Because you want people to use the open source stuff. The open source underpins so much of technology as it currently exists. Android, and it is risk reduction, not avoidance. But, like, the risk is usually like accidental, where now you're putting intentional risk within the environment. But ultimately, like, I can't fault the idea of political protest. Oh, why can't we just? I'm tired, and I want things to be easy. Why can't we have easy? Well, it's not just lefty as malicious, you know. It could be like, because I know a bunch of lefties who would not side with Ukraine in the war. You have stronger feelings about language than I do, which is something that I really appreciate. You know? Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I like where I've always said where I fall on these things is that war is bad, and the invader is bad, and it's really that simple. The invader is wrong. Right? Is that fair? I mean, what's the purpose of like, I don't believe in borders, but if we have to have borders, then what is the purpose of border if you can just walk across the border and start shit and, like, you know, and bomb people's stuff? Like, I mean, What are we even doing here? This should have gone up in the earlier thing. I just wanted to see if there was any new information. Like, we've covered a few different stories on why tech companies are laying off thousands of workers. Oh, maybe the AI can take everyone's weapons away. Again, watch Colossus, the Forbin Project. U.S. job market remains remarkably strong on the whole. Tech companies have cut 40,000 jobs in the first 2 months, according to layoffs.fyi. Neat. Oh, there we go. This is a cool little. I mean, given the subject matter, like, cool is, but like, again, another thing I kind of geek out over a little bit, even though I don't really work with many of them, is tables of information. You know what I mean? So they started this back in, or the first table they have is in 2022. We have 171 tech companies with 44K in layoffs in this year. We have almost 1,200 tech companies with 263K employees laid off in 2023, and then 1,000 with 165K in 2022. And we got charts. I'm just saying, who doesn't love a good graph, right? It is. The use of two different x-axes threw me for a second, but it's pretty elegant. It makes sense why they did it that way, because you can just do the one, or is that y-axis? I don't know. The uppy downy versus the lefty righty. You just have to track the months, and then you can track multiple things on the other axis. Yeah. And then the tech layoffs by industry. At respect, I mean, it does what you want it to do, and it does it like. And then here's the references. All right, where the hell was I? A lot of this is really the shift in spend towards the AI revolution. Okay, so here we go. The two narratives are, it isn't AI yet. We haven't really seen AI have an impact, and people outside of the industry doing the company doing the layoffs are are saying it is AI. A lot of this is really the shift in spend towards the AI revolution, which is the biggest tech trend we have seen since the start of the internet in 1995. Every product division is experimenting with how to incorporate AI into their business model and their products and their function. Why you're seeing they're letting go of some of the developers that are not related to AI, and they're hiring new talent and people with expertise on AI. And you're seeing a lot of reorientation, reprioritizing, repositioning across the board. Again. Learn to use the AI at your job. Be the AI whisperer at your job. Be the last person at that job. It'll be you, and it'll be the robots running the company. They'll fire the managers, they'll fire the CEOs, but you will still be there because you know how to talk to the AI. And then, because the AI is your friend, maybe it's like it keeps you on as a mascot. Just say it. Learn to use the AI. Oh, what else we got? Jesus criminy, still have more to talk about. Yeah. And gorgeous budget. Oh, yeah. Still geeking out over. Fusion startup plans to shoot space junk with lasers. Japanese startup plans to point the lasers it's developing for nuclear fusion at the sky to see if they can knock space junk out of orbit. Yeah. I mean, space junk is a problem, right? Millions of pieces, traveling at up to 18,000 miles an hour. Collisions can damage, like, currently operating stuff. Impacts between two different, like, in the space junk is the microplastics of space, right? Like, microplastics, the way that microplastics got micro is that plastic was subjected to the forces of the earth and smashing into each other and stuff like that, which eventually led it to be smaller and smaller pieces, and now it's in literally everything. Space junk, same thing. You have two pieces of space junk and they smash into each other, you now have like 1,000 pieces of space junk. And very small pieces moving very fast put very large holes in stuff, and if it has people in it, that's really, really bad. Yeah. Agree to the no Kessler syndrome. That would be bad. But if they shoot it with lasers, it could slow it down enough. Because what happens if like, it's going too fast to fall to Earth and burn up, and it's going too slow to achieve escape velocity. So that's why the stuff just goes round and round at 18,000 miles an hour around the Earth, is it's just in that sweet spot. And the idea that we could pew it, yeah, no, that's fair, Karen, is where that house that has an old car up on blocks in the front yard, and like a refrigerator and all that kind of stuff, that's the Earth in reference to the rest of the space. Got a couch on the front porch. I wouldn't stop here. Can you imagine? You're an alien species and you find out that there's other intelligent life out in the universe, and you pull up. It's like, what is What is all this crap you got here? Like, we can't. What are you doing? And you're still fighting with each other? What's wrong with you? Anyways. So yeah, they're going to try to shoot him with lasers. No word on when the two companies expect to test out the system. But they're also going to use, hopefully, some knowledge of that to help them make fusion. And I'm so down with fusion. The power of a laser for destroying space junk is an order of magnitude lower than for nuclear fusion, but they share technical challenges, such as controlling them via special mirrors. What else we got? As Nvidia hits $2 trillion, billionaire Mark Rowan, asset manager Apollo, calls AI a bubble worse than even the dot-com era. The top 10 companies in the S&P 500 today are more overvalued than the top 10 companies were during the tech bubble in the mid-90s. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him before. But he's a billionaire and has a investment firm. So we will listen to him about stuff. And it's not even him. It's apparently Torsten Sloke. He's a hell of a name, homie. Partner and chief economist at the wealth management firm. Adopted a cautious view, fragile equilibrium, estimates the chances are greater than 50%. Federal Reserve will surprise markets by course correcting. Either will cut rates in panic or it may end up even to having to hike them. I cannot tell what is the easiest, most know-nothing job that you can do, right? Is it sports broadcaster, right? Where you talk about what sports teams are going to do, or like what mock draft is going to happen, or is it economist, where you can just run your goddamn mouth and literally. We're doing this sentence again. Ready? Welcome in, Dory B. Good morning. He estimates the chances are greater than 50% that the Federal Reserve will surprise markets by course correcting. Okay. Either it will cut rates in a panic, or it may even having to hike them. Like, those are the opposite. Like morning ass word. It's like this is the easiest job. Either it's gonna do something or it ain't gonna do something. And oh my god. Whereas Ives is a buy-side analyst making a living by marketing tech stocks to clients, Sloke's employer is actually risking capital and can therefore ill afford succumbing to market hype. His warning comes after NVIDIA. It's our job to create computing technologies that no one has to. Oh, that's it. That is the extent of the article that's related to the headline. Dan Ives says that the party's just getting started on artificial intelligence stocks. And then my man Torsten Sloke says sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And then the entire rest of the article is background. Okay, so let's add Christian Hetzner, right? And the economics article writer, because I don't want to call them a reporter. I don't want to, the economics article writer as probably the easiest job that you can just friggin', you can just dial it in. Holy cats. How you doing the thing again? Axios doesn't like the tool. Where's Axios? U.S. and allies endorse 6G principles amid tech race with China. Let's see if it'll work if I hit it again. Oh, it did. Okay, we're good. The U.S. and several international partners endorse shared principles for developing 6G wireless communication. The big picture, a battle is underway to influence the standards of 6G amid concerns by Western countries and their allies that authoritarian regimes could gain further control over the internet in their countries. Yeah. Yeah, when we say authoritarian, are there any authoritarians we might be friends with or something? Or is authoritarian only when we're not friends with them? Policies around wireless communication influence economic growth and national security, fueling the race between the U.S. and China, which claimed earlier this month that it had launched the world's first satellite to test 6G architecture per state media. I mean, that's fair, Aswarp. I need to get more time out of my network before I can upgrade any of my crap. And then my phone will do 6G, but, 6G, but like, you know. Or is that, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking Wi-Fi 6. Now, 6G, the G's are the cellular, the Wi-Fi's are the other thing. So I have Wi-Fi 6 on my thing. But I would appreciate 7G. It might make me look at switching back from Spectrum to Verizon as an internet provider because their box was decent at 300, but 300, was it 300 down, 10 up? And it was decent, and it might have even been 30 up. I don't know. State of play: the governments of the U.S., Australia, Canada, the Czech Republic. I thought it was Czechia. Finland, France, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, and the UK released a joint. Okay, so I'm not off. Like, we don't have standards anymore. We're just out here freeballing article creation on the internet. Released a joint statement saying that by working together, we can support open, free, global, interoperable, reliable, resilient, and secure connectivity. They laid out principles, including using systematic approaches to cybersecurity, being protective of privacy, and creating technologies that are widely available and accessible to developing nations. However, that privacy, your mileage may vary as it depends on whether or not it is a data company that's collecting your information or certain government organizations to protect you from the terrorism. And they did, yeah. Between the lines, China views telecommunications as central to its geopolitical and strategic objectives. And the United States and Australia and Canada and Czechia and Finland and France and Japan and South Korea and Sweden and the UK don't consider telecommunications as central to their geopolitical and strategic objectives. Is that China aims to dominate the development and rollout of 6G infrastructure, just as it did in 5G, where Chinese firms maintain 70% of the world's base stations and 80% of 5G connected devices. Okay. So what is the problem here? Like, I thought that's how you wanted this. I don't understand. Y'all need to figure out your rules to the game. Former Twitter engineers are building Particle, an AI-powered newsreader. Oh, the morning show is going to be replaced with an AI. Just like that, my job is being automated by Twitter engineers of all fucking things. A team led by former Twitter engineers is rethinking how AI can be used to help people process news and information. Particle.news, which entered into private beta over the weekend, the new startup offering a personalized, multi-perspective news reading experience that not only leverages AI to summarize the news, but also aims to do so in a way that fairly compensates authors and publishers, or so is the claim. So that's fair. Like, I mean, that's good, right? I can't hate on that intent. While Particle hasn't shared its business model, it arrives at a time when there's growing concern about the impact of AI on a rapidly shrinking news ecosystem. News that is summarized by AI could limit clicks to publishers' websites, which means their ability to monetize via advertising would also be reduced. So, remember the one we did earlier? No. About, yeah. About neo-feudalism, right? Techno-feudalism. The idea of getting the... Morning, Anthony Bishop. Getting those payments, right? The news organizations are going to create content and then receive payments from something like a Particle.news in order to use that content, and then Particle.news would then be incentivized to either provide advertising or ask for some sort of payment. No, you're fine. I said hi to you. I did. I saw you. This came from a webinar when they were presenting the new models on precarious short-term contracts for AI researchers. Well, that doesn't sound good. Use of the term precarious definitely doesn't sound good. Sometimes it feels like the headlines are always have time for. I do appreciate this Axios format, right? Like I've said this before, where they do like, oh, okay. But I like the bullet points. They give me the meat without necessarily like a lot of this, right? I don't need background every goddamn time. I understand some people do, right? But I don't. I prefer this. Axios is, I'm really enjoying this format. And to get that from like an AI in order to convert all this crap into that type of bullet pointed article. All right, doing some cybersecurity because my man Computer doesn't do cybersecurity anymore. Just does gaming streams. It turned into a total gamer streamer. I don't know what's up with that. U.S. pharmacy outage triggered by Black Cat ransomware at United Health Unit. I ran into this. We do miss you, Kai. Things change, life moves on, but we miss the good old days of last year. I went to pick up a prescription from the pharmacy, from Rite Aid, and the drive-through window was closed until further notice. And I didn't know what was going on, and then I saw this morning where hackers working for the Black Cat ransomware gang pew pew are behind the outage at United Health's technology unit that has snarled prescription deliveries for 6 days. Two people familiar with the matter told Reuters. The problem began last week. Elder Gang is better than Black Cat ransomware gang. Pew pew. Hackers gained access to Change Healthcare's information technology system and has led to disruptions at pharmacies across the United States. Change Healthcare and United Health did not immediately respond. Black Cat, also known as ALF-V, did not immediately respond when asked whether it was responsible. Like, do they have a spokesman? What is going on out here? Like, there's a phone number that you can call to talk to the Black Cat ransomware gang. The world is weird. The world, we will not call. I wish, like, I felt weird when I just said that Elder Gang is better than Black Cat ransomware gang. I'm like don't hack me, bro. I only meant that, I was joking, bro. Alphabet's cybersecurity unit, Mandiant, is handling the investigation into the breach. In a statement, they confirmed it has been engaged in support of the incident response, declined to comment further. All right. And so, like, we don't know what happened other than it apparently happened. It's Black Cat, as in meow. But they are also, like, Black Hat, right? They're the Black Cat ransomware gang. Pew pew. I would also kind of like to not die and stuff, right? Like, that is, I'm with you on that. Like, there needs to be less hacking of, and I understand they're hacking it not to fuck with the people, but to fuck with the companies that have the money, and I get that. But, like, I think that an organization could get a lot of good PR if student loan debt were to just the fuck appear, right? Like, if you take responsibility for that, you could probably get people to give you a whole lot of like that. There's a whole thing in a song from Third Base. Black cat is bad luck. Bad guys wear black. It must have been a white guy who started all that. That's a whole thing. Fox News hacker, speaking of hackers, we're doing a bunch of hacker stuff, turns out to be journalist who lawyers say was doing his job. Florida journalist has been arrested and charged with breaking into protected computer systems in a case his lawyers say was less hacking, more good investigative journalism. Well, this actually is important for that reason, right? Tim Burke was arrested on Thursday and charged with 1 count of conspiracy, 6 counts of accessing a protected computer without authorization, and 7 counts of intercepting or disclosing wire, oral, or electronic communications for a supposed role in the theft of unedited video streams from Fox News. Among the videos allegedly stolen from Fox by Burke were unaired anti-Semitic remarks by rapper Kanye West and others. Burke accessed the footage using compromised credentials and then altered recordings to mask their origin, the indictment claims. Burke's lawyers countered the charges, asserting he engaged in no hacking and committed no crimes. He merely followed a link to the feeds without ever being asked to input any credentials. Oh, here we go. Oh, I love you, Reed. While we, like anyone else, condemn computer hacking, we emphatically insist that the facts of this case will demonstrate that there was, in fact, no hacking. Burke's lawyers told the Tampa Bay Times. They further argued that publishing his findings is protected by the First Amendment since Burke was acting as a journalist. So this is a thing. Like, how much the Electronic Frontier Foundation agrees, saying in a statement yesterday that it wants the U.S. Justice Department to explain how what Burke did was an actual violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, as the indictment alleges. The law remains vague, too often allowing prosecutors and private parties to claim that individuals knew or should have known what they were doing was unauthorized, even when no technical barrier prevented them from accessing a server or website. What Burke did may be permissible among the Justice Department's or under the Justice Department's decision not to prosecute good faith violations of the CFAA 2, though, as we noted in the previous coverage, if access was in any way unauthorized, a good faith exception wouldn't apply. It's interesting, right? But it's also important. This is where investigative journalism and, protecting your data and all this stuff overlaps. We need good, solid answers with good, solid laws. So, like, if we're going to have laws, I think many of the laws that we have are not actually necessary, but if we're going to have laws, then they need to be good laws. And this is important. Speaking of Peter Thiel doubles down on his program to pay kids not to stay in school. Peter Thiel plans to give 20 more young people $100,000 not to go to college. Thiel started the fellowship in 2010, encouraging students to skip school and start companies instead. The effort has attracted criticism from education leaders. Now, I can understand this, which again, I am putting pins in and checking notes to make sure that I have not personally gone off, right? It's the volume question, right? If he was 1,000, 10,000 kids money to not go to college, that's one thing. This is more like a like a startup funding opportunity. Right? 20 people isn't even a statistical error. I think it's 20 people, 100 grand. We've talked about the Mustafa Suleiman's modern Turing test, which is where you give the AI $100,000, and if it could turn it into $1 million. Peter Thiel is doing that with actual human beings. Right? See, he gives you 100 grand of seed capital to start your company. I don't even know that this is actually like a story. This happens all the time. Don't stay in school, kids. Go ahead and clip that. That's the message billionaire Peter Thiel is sending as he extends a fellowship program, and it's a fellowship program here, that offers $100,000 to students willing to skip college and develop a company instead. What up, T1? School is for nerds. Welcome, fellow nerds. Some in the latest cohort of applicants plan to launch projects related to the buzzy industries of AI and cryptocurrency. Okay, I'm absolutely against this just because it can in any way develop cryptocurrency. Oh, and this isn't even that money, or that much money. So he started in 2010, initial group of 24 people, gave them $100,000 over 2 years. So $50,000 a year. That's like a good job for 2 years to see if you can get your business off the ground. And then in the 13 years that it's been running, a total of 270 people have participated. This is almost meaningless. So good. I feel better. Nothing bad happened here that I have to apologize for agreeing with Peter Thiel. I think there should be opportunities for people to do something. Like, if we're going to give kids student loans, then why don't we just give them regular loans? Right? Our criteria appears that we don't give a fuck, and we'll give kids student loans. Give them regular loans. Now you can buy a house or a car or, whatever else, and then develop your business, kids. Right? I mean, fuck it. Thiel told the Journal he decided to extend the program in part because he thinks American universities are now overly woke, inspiring him to encourage young people to steer clear. 270 people over 13 years. Come on, homie. Come on. Our view is it's still an outside game getting people out. You've done nothing, right? Like, what is that? That is $27 million. $27 million that he has invested in this, and I bet you he gets a tax break because of it. Come on, dude. Friends don't let friends take education advice from Peter Thiel. Okay. Two more, and then we'll go visit somebody. So this happened yesterday. I allegedly I heard rumors that that when this happened, this is why Zach App's stream yesterday suddenly dropped. I was in there, and then all of a sudden they dropped. Houthis hit underwater communication tables. Globes, not me, some other person named Globes, has learned that 4 submarine communications cables have been damaged in the Red Sea between Jeddah in Saudi Arabia and Djibouti in East Africa. I mean, it's a designator. They can't steal it. And I am Globus, and they are globes. So it's like, it falls into that realm. And it's definitely not me, right? And don't look. Don't check. Definitely not me. There are cable is causing serious disruption of internet communications, and they were just damaged. And Zach was back up today, so I figure whatever was happening, they fixed it already. Estimates are that the damage is significant but not critical because other cables pass through the same region. The repair of such a large number of cables may take at least so they just rerouted while they fix it, and it'll take 2 months. And then there's risk from the Houthis. I'm not going to call them a terror organization. Geopolitics are complex. The telecommunication companies will be forced to look for companies that will agree to carry out the repair work, which will probably actually be a Chinese company, because I read a whole article about how, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy all of the links, and they will be in Discord right after. Actually, like right after the raid, but before I get up out of this chair. But China maintains a whole bunch of the existing the submarine cable infrastructure, or let me not say China. Chinese companies do that. And apparently Chinese companies maintain significant portions of the 5G infrastructure around the world. And that was something I didn't know until today. And then finally, because capitalism in the market is just vibes, and the market doesn't like investment, Google parent Alphabet lost some $90 billion in market value Monday as controversy over the Silicon Valley's giant generative AI product made its way to Wall Street. Well, that's neat. Your little lines between the bullet points, in case I don't understand the way reading works. The sell-off followed a spate of controversy regarding the image generator. So, when Google released Bard, $100 million hit. They have this product the art generating product, and it's a little wonky, got some issues. $90 million hit. It's Google. They'll fix it. There's a meaningful blunder in the PR battle surrounding generative AI. Further suggests that Google is trailing and misexecuting in a fast-moving and high-stakes space. Loop Capital analyst Rob Sanderson wrote in a note to clients. The issue for the stock is not the debate over Gemini itself. It is the perception of truth behind the brand. Melius research analyst Ben Reitzes and Nick Monroe wrote in a Monday note to clients. Regardless of your view, if Google is seen as an unreliable source for AI to a portion of the population, that isn't good for business. And in spite of the fact that, they still have one of the top LLMs, and Gemini is for most people as good as any of the others. And this is the thing, is these are people who decided we're going to sell off this Google because we don't like what is happening. It makes us uncomfortable, right? And maybe it actually did make them uncomfortable. The idea that it didn't make them uncomfortable and they just wanted to make this move. Excuse me. So now Google's down 4.5%. And then what if they go back with somebody else's money and buy it at slightly less and then make money? And it's all shenanigans. It's all shenanigans and vibes. Buy it all. Buy everything. Buy high, sell low, buy everything. Okay. Oh, who up? Who up twitching they chats? Why do we crucify ourselves every day? I crucify myself. Nothing to do is good enough for you. Crucify myself. My heart is sick of being. My heart is sick of being. Chee. Whoa. Alright, we're going to raid the Grumlow. Stick around for the raid if you got someplace else to be. I appreciate your time, especially people like Dame Karen and some of y'all who are from the places where it's late now. I will be back tomorrow morning for more AI. I will cough myself to death real quick. I just get post-nasal drip. Post-nasal drip causes me to cough. I don't have the COVIDs or anything else like that. Don't worry about it. All right. So I will be back tomorrow with more AI news and like that. I do drink my water. I just drank some water. I'm going to drink more water. And in the meantime, drink your water. Eat some food. Take your meds if you forgot. And always remember, Shoggy loves you. So do I. Be great.